Hello, my name is Christian-Geraud Neema. I'm the Africa editor of the China Global South Project and also a non-resident scholar for Carnegie Endowment for International Peace at Washington, D.C. I'm a China Africa mining expert, and I'm here today to provide you with few tips that's going to help you to improve your coverage of critical raw material stories in Africa. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to be shortening critical raw material as CRM. The CRM includes the minerals that we use in the EV industry, being cobalt, nickel, lithium, manganese, phosphate, graphite, and other minerals, now depending on different countries, which has different lists of critical raw materials that they include in the classification. So, few tips to better cover CRM stories in Africa. Usually when we talk about minerals in Africa, it's been done under the human rights angle. Most of the time, most stories that we cover, it's related to ESG, environmental, social and governance issues. We talk about the mining pollutions. We talk about how they're impacting negatively different communities. And when it comes to CRM, it's very important to now include different elements, because those CRM comes with different dynamics that needs to be included in your stories. So having those elements will allow you to provide a more factual, robust, very resourceful content for your readers, so they can better understand all the dynamics and all the challenges and everything that's happened around CRM in Africa. So the first angle will be the geopolitical angle. We all know that countries in the West, the US, EU, and other countries are now fighting with China over the access of the CRM in Africa. We know that different mechanisms have been put in place by the United States, by the EU, by Canada, by Australia, by different countries in the West to really create dynamic where they can build a China-free supply chain of CRM. So as journalists, you ought to understand all those different dynamics. You ought to understand all those different initiatives. When I say MSP, what does it mean? What does it stand for? Mineral Security Partnership, where does it come from? Who are the members? When was it put in place? What are the goals? What are the objectives? When I say IRA, what does it mean? Inflation Reduction Act in the US, what does it include? What are the different components of the IRA? How is it implemented in Africa and elsewhere? When I talk about all those initiatives, you need to understand, you need to be able to understand the different mechanisms that all those countries are putting in place. What are the position of African countries? What are the initiatives the African countries are putting in place? When we say the AMDC, what AMDC stand for? What AMV stand for in Africa? Africa Mining Vision, Africa Minerals Development Center. What are the policies they're putting in place to be able to navigate all those different initiatives and all those different tensions around critical minerals in the world? We also have to understand what are the goals and the interests of Chinese company, which are the main players in many countries in CRM, what they do, what are their goals, what are their approach. We should not be going toward very simplistic narrative, because most of the narrative around those debates are much more complex, nuanced. So there is a need for journalists to know better, to know more about all those different dynamics. The second element that journalists need to take into account is the chemical, economical, and industrial dimension of CRM, because now that we are talking about developing local value chain, what does it mean? What does it entail? What are the prerequisites that country needs to put in place to take advantage of these critical raw materials? Putting export ban, is it enough to get what we want to get? Or just copying what Indonesia has done in terms of export ban will get us where we want to get? Or do we need much more? If we need more, what do we need in terms of industrial basics, in terms of chemical basics, in terms of economic basics? What do we need? What are the prerequisites we need to put in place to be able to take advantage of the CRM that we do produce? And this is the part where journalists really have to nail it down to really understand that, so they can also question and hold accountable policymakers and politicians, when they make bold statement about what their country will do in the next 3, 5 to 10 years, when you do know all the complexity of each CRM and what does it involve, and when you understand the chemical process and the industrial process of those CRM, you can really ask policymakers, you can really challenge them in the stories they put out, in the narrative they put out, to be able to provide the stories that for your readers to understand that when the policymakers are saying this, journalists are also providing a different type of information. So us as consumer of the information, we understand where do we stand and where do we go. And because it's key in terms of accountability to know the right information, the right data. And unfortunately, when it comes to CRM, I've seen that in so many African countries that policymakers, politicians, and individual journalists, they talk about things that don't always make sense, or things they don't really understand. When they say, when I say, for instance, here, Zimbabwe has been building lithium concentrator, where does it stand in this value chain of lithium in terms of processing and refining? Is it the first stage? Is it the latest stage? Is it the mid stage? Where does it stand? And is it a step forward, or is it a step backward? Where does it stand exactly? So understanding all those dynamics, understanding all those complexity will help a lot of journalists to really improve the content they build around CRM. Another element that I was not thinking to add, but I'm going to add it, understanding the international political economy of commodities. It's very important to understand what are the different leverage, the different elements that impact the prices of CRM in the world. Why cobalt prices are low today, why lithium prices are low today, what's gonna push them to be high or down tomorrow. Understanding all those dynamics, who are the main actors, what's the role of commodity traders, what the roles of buying countries, what the role of exporting countries, what the role of processing countries, what they do, how they get there. Understanding all that complexity will allow you and will also help you to be able to understand the different dynamics that's going to play out in your countries, especially when your countries are producing CRM. You'll be able to understand why, for example, the revenue of your mining industry has been low or they've been high, and all those different elements. It also maybe allow you to understand why your politicians are behaving in a certain way, especially in the country where mining industry are playing a very important role in the political economy of those countries. So understanding how CRM markets works and what are the different dynamics in place is going to help you as journalists to provide a kind of robust content that's going to help your audience to understand all the challenges and different elements around the CRM debate in Africa. And last point I want to make, it's about climate change. Let's not forget that all this debate about CRM started because we needed to do energy transition, because we were told that climate change is an existential threat to the humanity. So we need to have those energy transition to happen. And many of those critical minerals are used to help us build the energy transition that we want to build for the tomorrow. So we need also to be able to bring back climate change topic at the center of CRM coverage. As I know, I've mentioned the first element being geopolitics, and unfortunately for so long, that element has hijacked the CRM debate in Africa and elsewhere around the world. That's why, for example, we talk more about CRM in terms of national security for the US, for Europe, for the EU, for Australia, but we don't always talk about it now under the spectrum of climate change. So including that element, bringing that element at the center of the debate is going to be important, especially in countries that are in impacted by climate change. Here, and think about a country like Mozambique, for instance, when you see the hurricane, when you see the tornado that's impacting Mozambique, and when you know that Mozambique is producing critical raw materials, you need to understand how that raw materials is going to help us build the tool to mitigate and to adapt to the effect of climate change that's impacting our countries. So all those elements are needed. So you need to understand all those dynamics to be able to build a much more, stronger, robust stories around critical raw materials in Africa. I know I said it's going to be a CRM, but me, myself, being talking about critical materials all the time, I tend to say that in mouthful, critical raw materials, but it's also CRM, as I said in the beginning. So yes, those are the few elements and few tips I wanted to give you. I know many of you being experiment journalists, you're already including them. And for those who are not doing that, I hope you're going to do that. It's going to help you to improve your coverage. It's going to help you to produce the kind of content that is robust, factual, and evidence-based. That's going to allow you to question and to hold accountable policymakers and politicians when they make bold statements, so you know where your country is standing in that debate of CRM. So I hope that's been helpful, and I hope I'm going to see you next time when I'm going to be attending another AIJC. But for the rest of the time, I'm going to be available. I can be reached out through my colleague Jing Akina, who's there, and you can also ask my contact from Bongiwe, Mrs. Bongiwe Tutu, who's there, who's going to provide my contact for you to contact me if needed in any case. So see you and good luck.